All right, so in your last class, I understood that you guys were able to finish the pivot table, how to use the pivot table to analyze data. So the data set, there was a data set that was dropped in the group earlier this evening. That is the data set we are going to be using to work on the next phase of tonight of the class. So tonight we are going to be talking about charts. We are going to be learning how to build charts using in Excel. We're going to be learning how to build charts from the pivot tables that we already done, from the analysis that has already been done using our pivot table. So right now, I believe everybody should have access to that file, and then you can open it and follow me as I teach you how to use charts in Microsoft Excel. But before I go ahead, I would like to give you the definition of charts. What are charts, or what do you mean by charts? When you talk about charts in Microsoft Excel, what exactly do they mean? So charts in Microsoft Excel simply mean visual representations of your data. They simply mean visual representations of your data, and they help to identify patterns, trends, and comparisons quickly. Please let me take that again. Charts in Excel are simply visual representations of your data. And what do you mean by visual representations? For example, this analysis that you are seeing on your screen right now is talking about the monthly salary for each department, the monthly salary per department. And this analysis was gotten using the pivot table. This analysis was gotten using the pivot table. But right now, it is just in a table. It hasn't been visualized. It hasn't been visualized. And that is what charts will help us do. Charts will visually represent your data in a way that will help people to identify the patterns or the trends or the comparisons that are in that data. Charts will help you to identify patterns, trends, or comparison that are in your data. So without further ado, we're going to be going live to building the charts, to building our first chart in this class. Now, please note that your charts are the visual representations of your data. So what it means that you need to have analyzed your data. Your chart are simply going to take on whatever is in your data. Your chart will simply mirror your data. And that is what the definition told us. They are visual representations of your data. So your chart is not standing alone. Your chart is just simply representing your data visually. So it is not a standalone thing. It is dependent on your analysis, which you've done on your pivot chart. So now the first analysis that we are going to be using to build tonight's chart is the monthly salary by department. And how do you get your charts in Excel? How do you get your charts? Leave your cursors anywhere in your pivot table. Just leave your cursor anywhere. It could be anywhere. Then you go to insert. Insert is where my mouse is currently hovering. You go to the insert button. You go to the insert button, and over here, you can see over here you have a section that is dedicated to charts. Over here, you have a section that is dedicated to charts. So I'm just going to click on this arrow here to reveal all the charts I have. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is a dialog box that shows all the charts in Microsoft Excel. They are listed right here on the left. They are listed right here on the left. So in the course of this class, we are going to be taking on all the functional charts. We won't touch some because some are quite not functional. They have virtually no use. So all the functional ones, I think there are up to like 10 to 13 charts there. We are going to be taking them one by one. So I'm going to be telling you I'm going to be teaching you how to use these charts and when to use these charts. I'm going to be telling you how to use this chart and when to use this chart. And then we start with the first chart that we have there called a column chart. The first chart we have there is called a column chart. So when you click on the column chart, it's going to show you a preview of the chart. So once I click on this place, now if you guys are looking at this chart, also keep an eye on your pivot table. You will see that it is the same information that is on the pivot table that is reflected on the charts. You will see that it is the same information that is reflected on that pivot table that is reflected on the chart. Now, on your pivot table, you have your department listed out, IT, sales, operations, and so on and so forth. And then on the chart, if you look downwards here, it's the same thing that is represented. So for me to bring this chart into my worksheet, I'll simply click OK. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the first chart that we have built in tonight's class, which is representing the monthly salary by each department. So now you can see your department listed out here, underneath here. And then you can see the different ranges of salary. And then you can see that each and every department has a column. That is why it is called a column chart. Each and every department there has a column that is representing the total monthly salary for that particular department. So for example, I have the sales column, and on the sales column is telling me is above 2.3 million, which means the total monthly salary in the sales department is above 2.3 million. Now, this is the column chart which representing our chart. Now, before I go ahead to talk about other charts, there is something I want to teach you about. It is called chart elements. They are called chart elements. And what do chart elements do? Chart elements simply help you to modify or improve how your charts look. Chart elements simply help you to modify or improve how your charts look. Now, look at this chart right now. There are a lot of things that can actually be improved on this chart, and I'll be teaching you one by one. So where do you get your chart elements? Where do you get your chart elements? Click on your chart. I am clicked on my chart right here. So I come to this top right-hand corner. The top right-hand corner, you can see this plus sign. This is where the chart elements are kept. This is where you can see the chart element. And if you just put your cursor on it without clicking it, just put your cursor on that icon, it's going to reveal a caption, and it will tell you some of the things that the chart elements can do. Now, the caption that is there right now is telling you that chart elements add, remove, or change chart elements such as title, legend, grid lines, and data labels. Now, what I'm just going to simply go ahead and reveal the chart elements by clicking on it. Now, these are all chart elements. These are all chart elements. And like I said in the definition, I said they simply modify or improve how your charts looks like. So I'm going to be taking them one by one. Now, some of these chart elements, some of them are compulsory. You need to have them in your charts. And I'll be telling you, there are some chart elements that are compulsory. They need to be in every chart you build. There are some chart elements that are necessary. They are not compulsory, but if they are there, they do a whole lot of work. They are not compulsory. You might do without them, but if they are there, they do a whole lot of good work. And there are some chart elements that are virtually not needed at all. There are some chart elements that are not needed at all. So I'll be telling you each of these chart elements and their status. Now let's dive right in. The first chart element is called axis. The first chart element is called axis. If you guys can recollect, when we were all in primary or secondary school and we're doing graphs or we're building charts, a chart always has two axes. A chart always has two axes, which is the x-axis or the y-axis. The x-axis or the y-axis. Now, the same thing applies to the charts in Microsoft Excel. There are two axes to your chart. And if you are looking at your chart, it is true. There is one axis here, which is what I'm clicked on, where my mouse is hovering. This is one axis here. So if I can recollect, I think this is the x-axis. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I think this is the x-axis. The is this the vertical? Yes, the vertical. Okay, this is the y-axis. Thank you very much. This is the y-axis, which is the vertical, and then down here is the x-axis, which is the horizontal. So right now, it is very, very important for you to always have your axis in your chart. Let me take that again. It is very, very important for you to always have your axis in your chart. Right now, you can see the checkbox beside this is checked. The moment I uncheck it, all the axes disappear. Now, I've unchecked it. Now, can you see all my axes disappear? Now, if I should leave my chart like this, my chart will become very, very hard to read. Because, for example, all the axes has been taken away. I don't even know which column represents HR. I don't know which column represents marketing. I don't know which column represents operations, and so on and so forth, because I've already deselected the axes and they are all gone. So that is why it is very, very imperative or important for you to always leave your axis on in any chart you're building. And then you can go a step further. Now, beside this axis, you can see this arrow. There's an arrow beside this axis. You might decide to actually remove one axis. There's a possibility where you can remove one axis. If I should click on the axis checkbox, both axes go away, both axes disappear. But assuming I only want to remove one axis, possibly I want to remove the y-axis. There's a way for me to remove one axis and leave the other axis. And how do I do that? I simply come to this arrow that is beside the axis, beside the axis, and then I click on the arrow. Let me do that again. So I click beside the arrow, and now you can see two axes have been listed out for me: primary horizontal and primary vertical. Primary horizontal and primary vertical. We've already determined that the y-axis is the vertical one. So if I should just go ahead and unclick the primary vertical, now can you see that y-axis is gone? The y-axis is gone, but I still have my x-axis. So if I want my charts to be like this, I can just leave it like this. Now I've already removed one axis and I've left the other axis. But please remember, I said it is always imperative and important to leave your axis on so that people will understand your charts better. Now we move on to the next chart element, which is called axis titles. Axis titles. So for example, if someone should join us in this class right now without doing the initial analysis or following us ahead, the person might actually struggle to know what these numbers on this y-axis stand for. The person might actually struggle to know, okay, now this one is easier to get: IT, sales, operations, HR, finance. At least it is very, very easy for someone to denote that those could be talking about department. But what about these numbers? Anybody joining us in this class now might actually struggle to know what these numbers depict or what they represent. And that is where your axis title come in. We've already talked about axis previously, but now axis title, which means an axis can be titled, which means you can give a title to an axis. Now, and all I just need to do is I'll just click on that axis title. And now look at, for every single axis I have, there is a text box that has been added that is called axis title. So if I want to title my axis, all I just need to do is edit this. I'll just come to that box. Now, the title of this axis is department. The title of this axis is what? Department. So I can just name it so. And then I come to this next axis. And then I name it monthly salary. Now, anybody joining the class, or anybody seeing the chart for the very first time will automatically know that this particular axis is talking about monthly salary, because right now it has been titled, it has been named. So I don't even need to explain to everybody that what you're actually seeing on that y-axis or on that vertical axis is monthly salary. I don't need to say that anymore because it has been titled. So this is also a compulsory part of the chart element. You need to title your axis. You need to name your axis so that anybody reading your chart will effectively will understand clearly. Now, the next chart element is called chart title. The next chart element is called the chart title. Now, this is also very, very important. It is very, very important for your chart to have a title. Now, people joining this class right now at this moment who has not been with us from the beginning will not know what this chart is all about. We that did the analysis will know that, oh, this chart is talking about monthly salary per department. But someone that is seeing the chart for the first time might actually struggle to denote what the chart means. Now, that is where your chart title comes in. It is very, very imperative or important for every single chart to have a title. You must title your chart. You must name your chart. And when you are naming your chart, you name your chart according to the analysis that has been performed on it. You don't name it something that is different from the analysis that it is showing. Now, we all know that the analysis we are seeing on screen is the monthly salary per department, and that is what should be the title. So to name a chart, just simply click on the chart title checkbox here, and then you edit, and then you name it appropriately. Now that will be monthly. That will be monthly salary per department, and that's done. Now, anyone looking at this chart or anyone reading this chart will understand from the get-go what this chart means, what this chart is trying to analyze as the monthly salary per department. So it is very, very important or imperative for you to always title, excuse me, for you to always title your chart. Now, the next chart element that we are going to moving on to is called data labels. Data labels. Now, this chart element is not compulsory. You might decide not to use chart element and your chart will still look good. It is not compulsory, but when you use it, it makes your chart look good. And what does it do? Your data labels will simply label your the values. It will simply put the values on each column. Now look at what I mean. By the time I bring out my data labels, now can you see that it has labeled each column? Before, let me go back. Let me remove it. Before, this was how it was. The columns were just like that. Do you get? It wasn't labeled. But the moment I insert my data labels, now each column has been labeled by the exact figure that is attached to it. For example, IT, the monthly salary for everyone in the IT department is 2.344,223. So I can see it for me. I don't even need to check my table. Imagine my pivot table is clear, is covered or not even there. But because I've already put up my data labels, I know the exact value for each of my department there. So it is not compulsory, just like I said. You can decide to do away with it. But I, as a data analyst, I like using it because I believe it enhances my chart. It tells the people looking at my chart more stories. Even if I'm not in the room, they understand my chart better, more clearly, because of the data labels that have been imputed there. All right, so these are data labels for you. Now, the next chart element we're going to be talking about right now is the data table. The data table. Now, this particular chart element is actually not needed in your chart. Now, if you guys look at, okay, let me enable it. Now, look at the bottom, look towards the bottom of the chart. Now, this is actually not needed in your chart because it is just another table. It is just another table. So why are we adding a table in our chart when we already have pivot table? We already have our analysis on the pivot table. So why are we still inserting a table in our chart? All we just want to do now is visualize. So we don't actually need that table in our chart. So I'll just go ahead and remove it. So this is actually not needed at all in your chart. Error bars, I'm going to come back to error bars later. Grid lines. Now, what are grid lines? Grid lines are simply these lines that you see at the background. Can you see all these lines? All these lines that I'm trying to follow. Now, I've selected all of them. These are what they call grid lines. And what do? They simply help you to trace to the appropriate value. Now, let me remove my data labels. Now, if I should ask anyone without looking at the pivot table, and I should ask you that what exactly is the monthly salary for the operations? Looking at the chart, just looking at the chart, what is the exact monthly salary for the people in the operations team? It's going to be quite difficult to get it, but I will, because of the grid line. Now you can see this chart is above this grid line here. This chart is above this grid line here, and this grid line here points to 2.2 million. I can effectively say that, or I can accurately say that my operations, the operations department is earning above 2.2 million. And that is because the grid line that is closest to it is pointing to 2.2 million. So that is what grid lines do. They help you to connect, they help you to trace the values to the axis here. This axis is the y axis. So they help you to trace the values to wherever the axis has been put. But they are also not compulsory. You can decide to have them and you can decide not to have them. Me personally, I don't like having them. So to remove them, I just remove them. I just remove them. And so sometimes I even go ahead to remove this other. Sometimes I even go ahead to remove the vertical or the y-axis, and then I just insert my data labels. So you can see I don't need the grid lines anymore because I am not tracing. I don't need the grid lines to help me trace to that axis because right now that axis does not even exist. I've removed it, and instead I replaced it with my data label so that I have the exact values showing for my data labels. All right. So that is for grid lines. Now the last thing is called legend. Now for me to teach a legend, I want to go to another analysis. I'm going to go to another analysis. I'm coming. Let me look for the appropriate analysis to teach that. So just give me a minute. All right. Now I'm going to use this particular analysis to teach the legend. Now let me insert a column chart once more. Now this is the chart that is visualizing that data set. Let me make it big. This is the chart that is visualizing that data set. Now this data set is that is visualizing that particular information. Now, what we are asked to analyze here was the gender count per department, which means in each department, what is the count of each gender? For example, in the finance department, what is the count for females? What is the count for males? That is what this particular analysis is showing. And this is the visuals, this is the visualization that we got. We are still on the column chart. So this is the visualization that we got. Now, you guys will agree with me that this looks a bit different to the first one we did. This looks a bit different to the first one we did. And what made it different was that this very first one only has one value. We're only talking about one value, which is the monthly salary against the department. It is just one value. If you look at the values field here, it is just monthly salary we put, and then just the department. We only have those. But because, now let me go to the next one, the one we want to use right now. Can I find it anymore? Please bear with me while I look for that. I don't know where I dropped it. All right, now I see it. Now, this is a bit different from that other one because right now we are not talking about one value. We're not talking about one value. We are showing the gender for each of the department, and even the gender is just not one gender. Under the gender, you have the male, you have the female, and in this case, you have others. That is why you are having three columns. That is why you are having three columns for those three values you are showing: female, male, and other gender. That is why you are seeing three columns. And then you can see just at the bottom here, on this axis here, on the x-axis here, is the department. Now, remember, I want to teach you something called legend. Now, in cases like this, when you're having multiple values, in cases like this, when you're having multiple values, when you're having multiple columns for one data set like this, you need to always leave your legend on. You need to always leave your legend on because right now, if you look at legend, this is where the legend is, ladies and gentlemen. Where my mouse is hovering, this is the legend. This is the legend. Let me make my screen big a bit. This is the legend here, where my mouse is actually hovering. And what the legend does is that the legend will help you to differentiate what the column is all about. It will tell you exactly what the column is representing. It will tell you the value that the column is representing, and it's represented with colors. Legend uses colors to differentiate between columns. Legend uses colors to differentiate between columns. Now look at now, there are three information here: female, male, and the others. And you can see each of them has a color that has been assigned to it. And that is what you are going to use to read this chart. So what he's telling us that the female has the blue color. So if I come to this, let me reduce it a bit. Hold on. So if I come to this first analysis here under finance, so since the legend is telling me that blue represents female, I just need to look at this blue. So that means this is the blue. And if I'm to use my grid lines, I will know that the blue, the females right now, because blue represents females, the females under finance is more than 100. The females under finance is more than 100, but less than 120. If I want to get the exact values, I just put my data labels on each of them. I put my data labels on each of them, then I can get rid of this particular axis. Now, I know that in the finance department, females, because they are the ones in blue, are 112. Male, because they are the ones in orange. And now am I getting this? Just by looking at my legend. This is my legend where male in the finance department are 99, and the other gender in finance is 106. And that is how to use your legend. So it is very, very important to use your legend when you have multiple values like this. But when you now have a value such as this, that is just the same thing across board, you really don't need your legend. Because remember I said your legend uses colors to differentiate. But right now, this one is the same thing, is the same value, and is using the same color. So in cases like this, you can remove your legend. It's totally not needed. So just come here. Look at the legend here. You can see there's nothing to differentiate. That's why it's writing total. That's why it's writing total. So in cases like this, you can decide to remove the legend. But in other cases where you have multiple information like this, you need to leave your gender in place, your legend rather in place. All right, let's move on. So the next one is a trend line. The next one is a trend line. So what a trend line simply does is that, okay, let me go back to that initial, let me go back to my, all right. So what a trend line is just going to do is it's going to draw a line that shows the trend in your data. It's going to show a line that shows a trend in your data. So now you can see I've already clicked on the trend line. Now that trend is showing a declining trend. It's showing a declining trend, which means the monthly salary is declining per department. It's declining starting from IT till it gets to the least one, which is marketing. So is a decline. There's a decline in the monthly salary for all departments in that particular company, starting from IT and ending with marketing. So ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of chart elements. I've been able to cover all these, and now we understand which chart element is actually compulsory, that must always be there, which ones are necessary, and which ones we don't really need at all. All right, beautiful. So now let us move on to the charts right now. So now I'm going back to the chart. Now this is the first chart I told you about, clustered column. Let me remove my grid lines. Let me use this other one. I think I like this better. All right, so now let us move to the next chart type. So like I said, the first thing we did is column. Yeah, I'll come to the error bars. I didn't forget. It should be covered. Be patient, but follow the ones I'm teaching now. So like I said, the clustered column is what we just did right now. Now, under the column charts, we're still under the column charts. Under the column chart, there are different kinds of column charts. And these are what we have up here. Under the column chart, there are different kinds of column charts, and those are what we have here. So the first one we just did, the one that we've been doing since, is called the clustered column. That's what we had on our screen earlier, the clustered column. So now I'm moving on to the next kind of column, which is called the stacked column. The stacked column. So once I click on it, and then I click on OK, let us see how it looks like. So it's a stacked column, which means those values are stacked on each other. You can see how they are stacking on each other. It is just one bar, but that one bar, you're having stacks. The blue comes first, which is the female. The male comes first, and then the others. All of them are stacked on one value. And you can see our data labels still apply. Our data labels still apply. So one thing I can just do for these data labels, because they are currently not being visible enough, I can just click on the data labels and just give it a more visible color like white. Do the same thing for every other one. Now you can see this is a stacked bar. They are stacked on each other, and it is a very, very good chart to use when you are representing your information. information. Now that is a stacked bar. Now let us move on to the next bar in the column bar. The next bar in the column bar is called the 100% stacked column. There's actually a difference in both. There's a difference in the stacked column and a difference in the 100% stacked column. If you have been paying attention, you will have noticed the difference. Now, this is how an 100% stacked column is going to look like. They are all reaching the same place, but it is still stacked on one another. And because my data labels are present, I already know the values for each. And my legend is also present. So I know what color is representing what value. I know what color is representing what value. So that was why I took my time to explain the chart element and let you know which ones are compulsory, which ones you need to look out for. Now we can see the application right now. So that is another column chart. Now the next column chart or the next 4 column chart, I am going to what's the English? I would like to push you guys away from discourage you. That's what I'm trying to say. I would like to discourage you guys from using these next 4 charts. The next chart is called a 3D clustered column. And if I click on it, this is how it looks like. Now, some of you might say, especially the ladies amongst us, because it looks so nice. But one thing I want us to note is that our core job, our principal job is we are data analysts. And your major objective is to get insights, to gather insights and present it to stakeholders or your boss or whoever is interested in that project. So that is the only thing that should be at the back of your mind, to make sure that those insights are well understood and well read. You are not to design your charts like a graphic artist or a UI UX designer. We are not concerned with the aesthetics. We are not concerned with how beautiful the chart looks like. What we concern ourselves is this chart readable? Is this chart giving the correct insights? So I would like to discourage us from using charts like this, because if you use chart like this and you use it in a presentation, possibly to stakeholders, you might be viewed as an amateur. You might be viewed as an amateur because people, they will be like, what's the need for this? Is it telling anything else apart from the data? We are there to present data, not to present how the charts looks like. So please, I would like to discourage everyone from using anything 3D charts. You're going to be seeing them in almost all the charts here, but please, let's refrain from using it because of these explanations I gave earlier. So this is a 3D custom column. The next one is a 3D stack. They are all in 3D. So you can see they are just mirroring what we had earlier in a 3D format. They're just mirroring what we had earlier in a 3D format. So if you have something like this, you're good to go. This is very professional and straight to the point, and this is what is tenable in the data world. All right. So I've been able to cover every single chart under the column chart, which will take me to the next chart called the line chart. It is going to take me to the next chart called the line chart. So if I click on the line chart and I click on OK, ladies and gentlemen, we have another kind of chart right now on our screen. We have another kind of chart right now on our screen, which is called the line charts. Which is called the line chart. So now, ladies and gentlemen, these are the line charts works. And you can see your legend here also plays a role. It's very important because you're having 3 different values. Assuming I had already deselected or disabled my legend. Assuming I've already disabled my legend. Now, this is a line chart. How will I know which line is representing which value? How will I know which one is a male? How will I know which one is a female? And how will I know which one represents the other gender? There is no way. But the moment my legend is there, I will know it's going to divide it in colors for me, and I'll know which color represents whichever gender. So now this is how a column chart looks like. So I'm just going to go back and bring I think I need my other axis this time around. So I just bring my other axis so I can trace. Now let us go back. There are other kind of chart types too. There are other kind of line charts also. The first one we just did now is just a simple line chart. That's the name. Line. That's the name of the chart there. But the second one, we have another one called stacked line. stacked line. And then when I click on OK, now I think this one looks much more better. It's not jumbled together. Now this is a stacked line. It is also a line graph, or it's also a line chart rather. And it's a very, very good chart to use. As you can see, it is actually representing our chart the way we want it. So line charts are mostly used. Line charts are mostly used when you want to show trends over time. Line charts are often used when you want to show trends or when you want to show a pattern over time. So maybe you have so this particular line chart will be good to use in an analysis like something like, I'm coming, let me look for it. Something like this, hiring trend per year. Now, there's a year analysis there. So we want to see the trend per year, how it's going down and up. We want to see the trend per year. So this now I can just use my line chart, introduce my line chart. But you can see it is just one value. So that's why we're having just one line there. So let me just enlarge this. Now, can you see the trend over years? 2029, there was a major dip. 2029 there was a major dip. But in 2022, which is over here, there was a push. There was a push. There were more number of people hired in 2022. So you can see that it is showing us the trend per year. So that is when a line chart is very, very good to actually use. So now let me try and go back to the ones I'm doing. Now, this, like I said, this is still a line chart. Now, that is the second type of line chart called stacked line. The third one is called the 100% stacked line. The third one is called 100% stacked line. And then we have another line chart called line with markers. Line with markers. Or let me choose the next one, that is stacked line with markers. So let me click on OK. So what it just simply does is that it's going to add markers. These are markers. You can see these dots. They are the ones that stand for these values here, this department, so that it will enable you to trace them efficiently. Do you understand? It is more marked now. That's why they call markers. It marks the line so that you will know where it is reaching. It marks the line. So the line chart is a very, very good chart to use to analyze your data. And I've told you when it is mostly used. All right, so let me end the line chart. Now, the line chart also has a 3D line chart. The line chart also has a 3D line chart. And like I said, I'm discouraging us from using a 3D, anything 3D, because of the examples that I've given earlier. So right now, that concludes the line chart. So we're moving on to the next chart, which is the pie chart. We are moving on to the next chart, which is the pie chart. It is a very, very common chart. Many people like using the pie chart. But before we start using the pie chart, I am going to start off. It has limitations and it has advantages. What I'm trying to say is that it has advantages and it has disadvantages. So let me start off with the disadvantages of using a pie chart. Let me start off by telling you the disadvantages of using a pie chart. Now, if you are using a pie chart for values, now look at our analysis. Everybody should take a look at the pivot table. Now, the pivot table is showing me the department for each gender. That means I have the department on one hand, and I have all the genders listed out, the female, the male, and the others. And then I have the values for each of them, which means, for example, for the finance, I have the values for female, I have the values for male, and I have the values for other. Now, because I am having multiple values, which I'm talking about the female, male, and other, because I'm having multiple values, all those information cannot be represented on the pivot table, on the pie chart. All of them cannot be represented in the pivot, on the pie chart rather. It will only take the first one. And look at my pie chart. Look at the title. It only took the female. It is only representing the female information because it is female that it was listed first there. The male is not there. The other is also not there. So you can see how it differs. You can see the limitation as opposed to the column chart and as opposed to the line charts, which were able to show all those values. They were able to show for female, male, and the others. But with a pie chart, you cannot use it. You can only use it for one value. And that is what you're saying. Now, that is a limitation. That is one limitation. Another limitation of a pie chart is that if you are using pie charts for much information, okay, let me go out. Let me use another analysis. Let me use another analysis. Let me draw a pie chart in this place that we are. Now, another major limitation of a pie chart is that when you have many values to represent, you are going to be getting a repetition of colors. You are going to be getting a repetition of colors. Now, look at this. Someone should take a look at this. All of us should take a look at this pie chart. There is a color that keeps on repeating. Now, if I want to make this analysis is telling me about the total absences for each staff. So these are the top 10 staff that have been absent more than any other person in the company. So imagine I'm talking about, so let me sort this so I can get the person that has the highest. So Melissa Garcia is the employee with the highest number of absences. Now, I have seen where Melissa Garcia, you can see the, what they call it, the legend. Let me make this a bit bigger. Now, can you see the legend? Do you understand? The legend has listed all the values that are there, and it has assigned a particular color to it. But the problem now is that the color that has been assigned to Melissa Garcia, other values also have that same color, which means I'm having the same color, repetition of colors. If I'm to present this chart to anyone and I say, oh, the person in blue, the person with the blue slice there or with the blue color there is Melissa Garcia because she's the one that has been the most absent employee in the company. The next thing someone is going to ask me, especially the Gen Zs among us, the next thing you're going to get is that which of the blue? I am using blue to specify. I am using blue to differentiate, but there is just not, we have multiple blues. So the next question you'll be getting is which of the blues are? Because there are many blues, and then you become dumbfounded and you look at your chart and you know truly there are many blues. So this is another limitation of a pie chart. When you have too much values to represent, please refrain from using a pie chart. Please refrain from using a pie chart. A pie chart is used when a pie chart is good to use when you don't have those limitations I talked about. For example, in this one, we only have one value we are showing and we don't have much values. So I can use a pie chart and then I click OK. Now this pie chart, which is a Benz logo. Is this a sign that we are all going to buy Benz this year? So now this pie chart is representing this analysis now, and there is no limitation. You can see there is no limitation. It is effectively showing the values for each. The colors are not clashing because the values are not much. So this is when to use a pie. These are the limitations of a pie chart so that you know when to use the pie chart. Now, I've talked about the limitations. Now, let us talk about the advantages of using a pie chart. So a pie chart is always equal to 100. A pie chart, the whole circle is equal to 100. And the way it divides, you can see it is divided. It divides it according to the share. It divides it according to proportion. Now, if you take a look at our pivot table, the gender with the highest, let me sort this. Let me sort that from largest to smallest. Now, the gender with the highest monthly salary there is the male gender. Is the male gender. The gender there, as I was saying, the gender there with the highest monthly salary is the male. And if you take a look at the pivot table, at the pie chart, the male is represented by blue. And the blue has the highest slice. So in a pie chart, when it is being divided according to all the shares, we call them slices. So in this pie chart, there are 3 slices, one for each of those values. And the highest slice there is the male. The highest slice there is the male. So one thing I can add to my chart, my pie chart also adds its own chart elements. But if you look at the chart elements of a pie chart, there are only 3 because the pie chart does not have axis. A pie chart does not have axis. So that is why axis is missing in those chart elements. But you have your chart title, which I said is compulsory. So you can put your chart title. Now, what is missing? Your data labels. Your data labels. If you use data labels with pie chart, it's very good. It enhances the chart. So now look at what I mean. By the time you click on it, now each of those slides has been given their specific number. Each of those slides has been given their specific number. So let me just make them a bit white so we can all see. Now, can you all see? They've been given their specific what? Number. Or they've been given their specific value. And that is what you can do with a pie chart. Another advantage of a pie chart is that you can represent the values on each slide as percentages. Please let me come again. Another advantage of a pie chart is that you can represent your values as percentage. Now look at each slice now. There's the values, we all know the values. For example, for male is 4.3 million. Now I can decide to rewrite or to change all these values and represent them as percentages. Your pie chart is always equals to 100%. So now I want to divide this per 100% and allocate it, attribute it to each of these values. But right now I want it represented in percentages. So how do I do that? It's very, very simple. I come back to my chart elements and I come to my data labels. It is on. Yes, we agree it is on. But when I'm interested in the arrow beside it, I click on the arrow beside it. Once I'm done that, I now come to more options. More options, and I click on more options. The moment I click on options, I have these options here right now. And then I'll just look for percentage, for where percentage is written. I'll look for where percentage is written, click on percentage, and then I remove value. It was value that I was showing before, but right now, I want to switch the value for percentage. So I put on my percentage and I remove my value. Now, and then I can close this. Now, can you see? The slices or the whole pie chart has now been divided according to percentage. So we have the male, which is the highest, which has the highest slice, and is being represented as 34%. And both the others have 33% each. If you sum all three, you're going to be getting 100%. You're going to be getting 100%. So this is an advantage of using the pie chart. You can represent your values as a what? As percentage, as percentages. As percentages. All right. So we are going to move on to the next. We're moving on to the next chart type. We're moving on to the next chart type, which is called the area charts. Sorry, I skipped one. The next one is called the bar charts. The bar charts. Remember we did the column chart. So the column chart is vertical in nature. Columns are always vertical. So the bar chart is just a direct opposite to that. The bar charts are horizontal in nature. And this is how your bar chart will look like. So just let me click OK. So these are your bar charts will look like. These are your bar charts will look like. So you can see it is still the same representation that we've been using, but the chart type is just showing. Now this is actually showing in terms of bars, horizontal bars. And then your chart elements still apply. Your chart elements still apply. For example, I can decide my data labels, put my data labels. Now you can see my data labels are now in front. I can choose to remove the grid lines. You can see the green lines are gone. I don't need a legend here because it is just one value that is showing. I don't need a legend, so I get rid of the legend. And even I can decide to remove this axis that is here. So right now your bar chart, now this becomes the y-axis now. The values come down to the y-axis, or is it the x-axis? The values were in our column chart, the values were on the x-axis. But right now, the bar chart, the values have now come down to the x-axis. So I can decide to get rid of this and then leave my chart like this. So the bar chart is a very good chart to use. It's one of my favorite charts. I use it all the time. It's a very, very good chart to use. But there are also, now we're going to go back there. Um, Let me go back to the one I was using to teach you guys. Please hold on. Please hold on. Okay. Okay, no, this is not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the analysis that, all right, this is what I'm looking for. All right, so I'm going to build a bar chart with this. I'm going to build a bar chart with this. Now, the very first one we are doing is clustered bar. Now you can see that it has changed. There's been a slight change to the one we just did right now. And the only thing that changed is because this one has multiple values. This one has multiple values. So it is still the same bar chart. It's just that it has multiple values. So what we've been doing so far is the first chart, is the first bar under the bar chart, which is the clustered bar. Now there's another bar chart called stacked bar. There's another chart that is called the stacked bar. So you click on it. Let me click on the stacked bar. And then I click on OK. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you can see this is how a stacked bar is. The bars are stacked, just like the column chart. Just like the stacked column, this is a stacked bar, and then the bars are stacked on one another. I can insert my data labels, do you get? And just make my data labels a bit visible. Make the data labels a bit visible. Yes, and that is that. So you can apply every other thing. Right now, there are some things that are missing from this chart. There's no axis title, there's no chart title, and so on and so forth. You can also decide to remove the grid lines. So you can go ahead and do all this one in your spare time. But this is how a stacked bar look. The next one is the 100% stacked bar. This is how the 100% stacked bar is going to look like. And then the last three are the ones I told us to avoid. The 3D bars. The 3D bars. Yes, they might look kind of good. But if I should give you an assignment, or you're doing a project and you're doing this, it might not be graded well. So those first three are actually good to go when you're using the bar chart. Now, the next chart that we're going to learn in this class is the area chart. The next chart that we're going to learn in this class is the area chart. Now, this is how your area chart looks like. Let me just click on OK. This is how the area chart looks like. Now, you can see it also needs your legend because there are different values that it's talking about. Let me go back to the chart type. So under the area chart, we also have different kind of, this is the stacked area. We also have different kinds of charts, area chart. This is stacked area. Now, can you see? It is still the legend that is telling us which color is being differentiated from the other. So right now, let me go back. So we have this is the 100% stacked bar, and this is how it's going to look like. This is how it's going to look like rather. And the others are just the 3D versions. The others are just the 3D versions of the bar chart. So any one out of these first three is actually good to go. All right. Now, so we've been able to talk about 5 charts this night. We've been able to talk about the column chart. We've been able to talk about the line chart. We've been able to talk about the pie chart, the bar chart, and the area chart. Now, these 5 charts are quite unique. These 5 charts are quite unique, and I'll tell you why they are unique. These 5 charts are the only charts that can be built from the pivot table. These 5 charts are the only charts that can be built from the pivot table. Every other chart, let me show you what I mean. Every other chart are not compatible. That's the word I should have used. Those 5 charts are the only charts that are compatible with the pivot table. Those 5 charts are the only charts that are compatible with what? With the pivot table. Every other chart going forward will not work with the pivot table. For example, I'm going to teach you guys how to use a map chart. So let me click on the map chart now, and you guys can actually read the caption that is there. It's telling us you can't create this chart type with data inside a pivot table, which simply means it is not compatible. They don't work together. This type of chart will not work with the pivot table. And remember, when we started building all these charts, I said leave your charts or leave your cursor in the middle of your pivot table so that your charts can be built from it. But right now, we are having some charts that are telling us they cannot be built. Even if you leave your cursor in your pivot table, they cannot be built in your pivot table. But there's a way around it. There's a way we are going to build those charts that are not compatible with pivot table. There's a way we are going to build those charts. But I just want you guys to note that those 5 charts are the charts that are compatible with the pivot table. We are going to be learning something called slicers, but that is still further on in the course. When we get to that particular topic, I am going to bring back this statement because right now you're going to see why those 5 charts are unique. You're going to see why those 5 charts are unique because they work directly with a pivot table. So when we get to slicers, I'll be letting you guys know how that is all about. So at this junction, I would just like to take a pause, and I would like to open the class up for question and answers. I like doing that in my courses. It's an interactive class, so it's not all about me rambling on and rambling on. I like to also hear from you guys. If you have any question at all regarding what we've done this night, it could be a question, it could be a suggestion, it could even be a complaint about your classes so far. So if you have anything you would like to share with me or with the rest of the class, now is the time. So if you want to do so, kindly use the and function in Zoom. There's an and function in Zoom so that I will see that you're actually calling my interest, and I'll unmute you and you'll be able to speak with the rest of the class. All right, so you guys, the floor is yours now. If you have anything to say, kindly indicate. All right, we have our first would I say our first caller? Emeka iPhone. Okay, that's the name on your profile. So I've omitted you. Please go ahead. Please go ahead. The floor is yours. Emeka, I've omitted you. Yes, please go ahead. I can hear you.
Okay, it's a good job.
Please, can you be audible so every other person can hear you?
I'm using earpiece. I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Good evening, everybody.
Good
You
evening.
did a good job on the type of charts to use in the analysis. Yes. I observed that you only describe um the line chart, what is useful. I thought that every of the charts, starting from charts to pie charts. You describe why pie charts, why you need a number of items to be in it for easy interpretation. Yes, but other ones you mentioned, you didn't mention what they are used for. As you mentioned on the line chart, that's for trends to know the patterns. And let me just give me a few minutes. Let me tell you, for instance, what I was trying to project. Are you there? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead. I'm listening to you.
Okay. Um, like now, currently, as you gave that, I was going through something um, when we are talking about charts. I purposely picked up the chart. It now said bar chart. Um, bar chart is used for comparing quantities across categories. Example, compare sales of different products. Okay, and he went further to say, okay, this one we and okay, line chart, as you mentioned, slows trend over time, display the growth of um so you want to achieve. So I thought that the rest of the chart you mentioned, that you also mentioned what they are used for, so that just in a little way, as soon as you enter to analyze, the first thing that will come to you, what do I want to achieve? Then you know the chart to go for. That's what I'm trying to, because where I am talking about, because I got to the point of the talking about scattered plots and talking about histogram, what they are used for. So, but in this case, the ones you mentioned, only one you mentioned what they are used for and why we need it, which is the line chart. So I expected from the beginning the bar chart, whether the column chart or the rest. What are they? Why do we need it? That's what I'm trying to say.
All right, thank you very much for that expansive question. So I'll just it's very very simple. These charts their usage is very very simple. So I'd just like to possibly maybe I didn't mention that, just keep my mind. So the column chart and the bar chart are similar. The column chart and the bar chart are very similar. What just changes is their orientation. The column chart is vertical in nature, while the bar charts are vertical in nature. The column charts are vertical in nature, while the bar charts are horizontal in nature. So they have that similarity, and their uses are also similar. When you are using those two charts, you use it to compare values. That is why I
Hmm.
changed this on your screen
Yes.
right now. That is why I changed this to a bar chart, a column chart rather. So you can see what it is that is comparing the values because they are all side by side. They are aligned side by side. So what they do, the column chart and the bar chart, what they mainly do is comparing data across categories. Comparing data across categories. And that is what we are doing. We have different categories here. We have finance, we have HR, IT, and so on and so forth. So now we are comparing, and then our legend is letting us know that the values we have. So I can compare a value in finance with a value in HR because they actually stack together. So that is what the column chart and the bar chart do. They are used for comparing data. So if you want to compare, if you want to do analysis, which is actually asking you to show comparison, these are the best charts to use. And I've already talked about the line chart. I said the line chart showed trends over time, and I did that live in the class. Now, the pie chart simply shows proportions. For example, you want to represent a data, maybe a data is talking about the market share for iPhone, the market share of iPhone. Do you get? Now, the market share might be divided. It depends on the kind of analysis you do. The pie chart is very, very good in displaying proportions. Displaying proportions, how you are going to be, how is going to be appropriations. So when you are doing something like that, you get mostly when you want to get maybe a percentage or you want to show how it is being distributed, a distribution. The pie chart is good for that kind of data because, like I said, it is going to divide it into slices, and each slice is going to be given to each slice is going to mirror the value. So the bigger the value, the bigger the slice. So which other one did I so the area chart is just like your line chart. The area chart does the same thing. The only difference between that area chart and that line chart is it fills the area. Let me show you what I mean. Now, let me do a very simpler chart. Let me do a simple chart. So let me first of all take the line chart. This is the line chart. This is how your line chart looks. This is how your line chart looks like. But right now, if I should change it to the area chart, can you see it's the same thing? Can you see it's almost the same thing? The only difference is that the area chart is filled. This area here is filled, and they both do the same thing. They show trends over time. And then I think so. Those are the charts that we've been able to talk about this night. So in the next class, we are going to start off from the map chart. We're going to start off from the map chart, how to draw a map chart in Microsoft Excel. So using a map chart, a map is now going to show the geographical representation of your data. We all know map. Map shows locations. So a map chart simply shows the geographical representation of your data. And tomorrow is our next class. By tomorrow, each and every one of us will be able to use a map chart and all other functional charts that we have in Microsoft Excel. So if any other person, thank you, Emeka, for that, for bringing my attention to that. So if any other person has any other question, now will be a good time to ask because the class is gradually winding down to a close. All right. We are the females in the class. It's an interactive class, and we always encourage in Digital World Tech Academy, we encourage females to actively participate in tech world. It is not a male-dominated field. It's an equal field. So we always encourage our females to participate in class. So do you have any female that want to ask any question at all or contribute? Anybody to represent the stronger gender, as the case may be. All right, we have a female raising up her hand. Ruth, all right, I'm unmuting you. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Bajide, for this great class. Good evening, all.
Good evening.
I wanted to state that you didn't take us through the error bars again. I don't know if it was an omission or if you're moving it to another time.
All right, great observation. I'm moving it to another time, but don't worry, to be covered.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you for that, Ruth. Thank you for that.